I'd like to essentially get you guys involved with the whole concept of the learning process. We're going to go down the story, okay? And the story is going to be real simple. I'm going to ask you guys to give me an answer because you get to play cop now, okay? So here's the scenario. An individual walks into a room. A secondary individual walks into that same room. This person throws 15 punches and hits him in the chin, the chest, the shoulder, and the jaw. This person takes a step back, knocks him out. Who's going to jail? Okay, you got 19 more seconds, okay, to make a decision. So here's what we're going to do. Keep going, keep going. I'm looking for one more. Okay. All right, so we're at our 20-second break. I do this to everybody. I have totally set you guys up, and I do it on purpose, okay? But I'm going to give you the example, okay? How many say the first person to do the first punch? Raise your hand. First 15 punches. How many do you got? Come on. Let's see. Do it again. 11 people think the first 15 punch guy. How many think the second guy that knocked him out? Raise your hand. What's that?
What happened with the first puncher?
Oh, you just shook it up. Just shook it up. Okay? So you're saying the second guy that knocked him out? Okay, he's saying the second guy? Okay. How many of you guys say both? Raise your hand. Okay, so we got one. All right. So each of those answers is incorrect. Okay. Now, how many of you guys did your cell phones work? How many of you guys your cell phones work? So usually what I do is I have it set up so that I can write it on the whiteboard. I can't do it right now. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is I'm going to ask you to type in on your cell phone disorderly conduct if you go to Google. Okay, with disorderly conduct, we're going to go to a certain place and you guys are going to be able to read for me what the state statute is. It should be 18-9-106. 18-9-106, disorderly conduct. Of Colorado, yeah, it'll be CRS. Does anybody have it? Perfect. Okay, I'm reading.
Okay, yeah.
Which one's what I want to say? Okay. So I do this on purpose because, of course, I'm really nervous and shy. Okay, so I'm going to have you read. I'll tell you what it's not.
A person commits disorderly conduct if he or she intentionally, knowingly.
So every single one of you guys arrested Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, and any other MMA fighter that you see on TV. That's what you guys did. You arrested them on national TV. Was that a good arrest? Was it? No. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to get your brain to process how to read state law. Okay, how to comprehend what we're doing. Okay? The big question is, what are the rules? How do I play the game? Does that make sense? All right. So I've done all these really cool things. I've been on these really cool teams. And you know what? I've had different coaches from all kinds of different places. Okay? When I was on the bobsled team, I got to hang out with the team Chinese athletes. Ni hao, xie xie, that's all I had. I walked away with just that little bit. Okay? When I went to China, okay? When I got to be with the Jamaican bobsled team, don't laugh, Bull Runnings, okay? When I was with those athletes, I got to, understand how they jerk their chicken and how they prepare their food. So for me, you get a lot of rich connections with a lot of different people, but we all speak in somewhat the same language. We want to know the rules of the game. If we don't know the rules of the game, then we miss out on opportunities. So that's what Andy and I are going to cover. You want to flip the next one quick? Okay, we're going to shift this over to Andrew so he can break this down a little bit more in depth.
Okay, yeah, so the whole purpose of this is to educate you guys on what constitutes a crime in Colorado. Obviously, if something happens to you or something happens to someone you know, you can contact law enforcement, you can reach out to a lawyer, but it's also helpful for you to have a working knowledge of what we're looking at. We're not expecting you to pass the bar, we're not expecting you to get a law degree or anything, but if you're able to do what Mateo just did and look on your phone and see what just happened, what is a crime, that puts you in a much better position to talk to law enforcement, make a report, right? And so any crime in Colorado, there requires two things. One is an act, right? The punch being thrown or the phone being smashed. And the second is what was going on through that person's mind, the perpetrator's mind at the time. In other words, we don't punish accidents, right? If I accidentally hit you, but that was because I had an itch and I wasn't actually trying to harm you, or if I accidentally knock your phone out of your hand and I don't have any evil intention, then that's not a crime. So anytime law enforcement gets called, they're trying to break it down. They're trying to say, okay, what happened and what was this guy thinking at the time he did it? Is it a crime or is it an accident?
All right, so do you guys understand the concept? What is an act? Give me an example of an act, a movement. What do you got?
I have a really awful act
Okay.
to talk about. The reason why I want to talk about it is because it happens so that in our community, our Korean community.
Okay.
And what happened was this man was working as a Uber driver.
Okay.
And an occupant in the back seat attempted to cut him.
Got
The knife. And they were on a I-25 or one of the busiest highways, and he in order to avoid the knife, he held his hand out, pushed the knife away, and ended up in a terrible car accident.
Okay.
The terrible car accident injured both.
Okay.
As it turns out, what my concern about what happened to my friend is that he ended up with lifelong disabilities from the waist down. And that is just so wrong. But what also really upset me about the whole situation is that because language was limited, he didn't get the defense. He didn't get when he needed to get his car back after he finally was able to drive again after a year of rehabilitation. The people at the impound wanted to charge him $1,800.
Right.
And it absolutely was not supposed to be $1,800. That was a ruse. And it was all of this was wrapped up in my mind as a hate crime. But it wasn't defined as a hate crime because the man in the back had a state of mind of being high on drugs.
Right. So we're gonna address that real quick. So you have like about 5 different things that happened right there. There's nothing wrong with that. So essentially what you did is Joe Morgan's at the plate. Okay. Whitey Page is getting ready to pitch the ball. He shakes off the first pitch. He shakes off the second pitch. Okay, now he's going to throw a fastball. Okay, Joe Morgan hits the ball, ground the ball over to George Brett. Okay, George Brett picks up the ball, throws it to first. That's what you told me. You gave me 5 different things, okay, that ended up happening. Okay, so we're going to concentrate on the one. An act is going to be that first act where the guy's driving the Uber. That's normal. The criminal act of the other individual, the occupant of that vehicle, attempting to harm him, pointing a knife to what you said. So that's an act. What was that guy's mindset? That talked about, okay, the state of mind. Okay. Now what you brought up is that he was high on drugs. Okay. Now we deal with this all the time. Okay. We deal with this all the time. What was the guy thinking? Why was he thinking? Oh, he was high. Oh, we'll give him a free pass. No big deal. We don't do that, do we? Okay. If you're DUI, if you commit a felony, assault, if you do any of that kind of stuff, I'm still going to make an arrest on you. Okay. My teammates are still going to make an arrest. Okay. You should still report it if they're committing a crime. If you can't handle the situation, that's why you call peace officers, right? Okay. So the idea behind where you're going with this is, what can we do to make it better so that there is fair play for a situation like that? That's what this is, okay? So, Jory had asked this earlier. He very specifically asked, okay, what about evidence? Okay? So, I drive Uber. You guys can tell, right? You guys can't tell? Okay. So, I like helping people. So, when I'm driving Uber and a guy gets in the car and he smells and reeks of alcohol, just like when I'm doing my patrol thing, okay, am I going to deal with him differently? Yes or no? Am I in a different capacity? Yes or no? Does that make sense? Okay. So if I'm in the police capacity, well, he's utilizing me, okay, as an Uber. Have I ever been an Uber as a police officer? Kind of. Okay, I see a guy inside the street, I'm like, bro, are you okay? No, man, I'm all messed up. Okay. Can I take you home? It's 20 degrees outside. Yeah, I don't know where I live, but my ID's in the back pocket. So I take his ID, I do a quick run, make sure he doesn't have any wants or warrants, let my boss know, and I take him to the residence. Did he commit a crime? Probably not. Because when I did my check and my investigation, there was no crime. Did I get him from point A to point B? Yes. Okay. On the flip side, if he did commit a crime and I show up, it changes the whole concept. Okay. So you should feel comfortable with knowing the law, knowing that the law is going to help you if you know those rules. What is the state of mind of every individual when they wake up in the morning? I don't know. But that's what we're going to address right now. So, good example, okay? But there's a lot of stuff, including civil, in there. Okay? It's a lot of stuff. We'll skip to the next one.
So, the rules that everyone plays by, everyone in Colorado, law enforcement, defense attorneys, the judges, the jurors, it's all governed by the Colorado revised statute. All crimes, or the vast majority of crimes that we're going to be talking about are all under Title 18. So this is what it looks like. Colorado revised statute, and when you Google it, if you type in CRS and then the title, it'll pull up the statutes, right? And so for that disorderly conduct that you pulled up, you simply Google disorderly conduct Colorado, it'll refer you to CRS 18.3, whatever the section is, right? But this is how it breaks it down for you. Now, we're not going to go over every single crime in the state of Colorado for you today. We're going to go over a couple basic ones just so that you have an example and a working knowledge of what to look for. Okay? So, there's a category in the CRS, the Colorado Revised Statutes in Colorado, that prohibit fighting, right? Now, there's a couple different ways you can get in trouble for fighting. One we've already gone through, disorderly conduct. And the way the statute reads when it breaks it down, so if you see a fight or if someone in your community has been hit, and you pull up fighting in public in Colorado, this is what you'll see. A person commits disorderly conduct if he or she intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. So these are the states of mind, intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. So in other words, not an accident. What were they thinking? Did they intend to do this? Did they know what they were doing? Or was their action so dangerous, so reckless, so negligent? Those are all different terminologies, right? Like here's the act. They fight with another person in a public place. And as Mateo pointed out, except, right? You have to continue reading. Except in an amateur or professional contest of athletic skill. So if you see two people fighting out in public and they're doing it and it looks like they're intending to do it or knowing that they're doing it, or at least we're doing it in a very reckless way, and it's not in a boxing ring, it's not in a sanctioned event, that's a crime. Understand that one act can constitute a lot of different crimes. And part of the job of the attorneys as well as law enforcement is trying to figure out which one best fits. It doesn't mean that they can only select one, they can select multiple ones. Yes?
Does this mean that this is the most common type of crime or hate crime that occurs here in Colorado?
So what we tried to do is we tried to select 10 crimes that we were most likely to commonly occur, right? That is common. It's not an exhaustive list. There's obviously more out there, but these are the more common crimes that we tend to see. So yes. So third-degree assault, another type of fighting, right? A person commits a crime of assault if the person knowingly or recklessly, again, that's what's going on in their minds, causes bodily injury to another person, causes pain, causes some sort of injury to the other person. So if you combine that with the disorderly conduct fighting in public, if a person comes up and punches you or punches another individual and it hurts, they're both guilty of third-degree assault as well as disorderly conduct. And that's something that when you're speaking to law enforcement, you can tell them, no, it didn't seem like an accident. They came up and they intentionally threw a punch, or they knew what they're doing and they hit me. It didn't seem like it was an involuntary reaction or they're surprised or anything along those lines. Right? So if you understand the statute and you break it down, you can then explain it in a term to law enforcement that helps make their job easier to investigate. And to Jory's point, right, when we bring up, when you're talking to law enforcement, you can then start talking about evidence, right? Well, how do we know it wasn't knowingly or recklessly? Well, he came up and said the words, "I hate you," and then threw the punch, right? That gives us insight or evidence into what was going on in that person's mind. Right? Or the injury. Well, look, here is a mark, or here's a mark on my cheek, and that's where they punched me. Or you can talk to Mateo, who is standing there purchasing a bag of chips and saw this all happen as well. So these are all things that show evidence for each part of these statutes. Does that make sense?
Perfect. You guys have any questions on that?
And then here is the statute number. Again, it's not something you need to memorize, but it's something that was easily findable by Google.
Yeah, so hold that. Good. So my suggestion is for those of you guys that are find the 18-3204, write this down real fast on there. Okay? The person knowingly or recklessly causes bodily injury to another person. Sketch that out real quick. Just write it out. Okay? That's what the purpose of this is that what you guys are going to do is you're going to walk out of here with the base knowledge on some real simple crimes. Okay? How many of you have gotten in a fight before? I have. So when I was on the Glendale Raptors team, we used to beat each other up. Like literally beat each other up. Okay? But it was on the football pitch. Okay? It was on the field. So when I walked away with a black eye, was there a crime committed? Yes or no? You're right. A legal crime. Yes, ma'am.
What about, like, siblings?
Siblings? Okay. Okay, for those of you guys that have kids or don't have kids, okay, my daughter beats up my son quite often. And she's good at it. I'm going to sign her up for MMA because we're going to get wealthy out of this, right? Concept being, when she punches him, okay, does it cause him pain? Yes, because he's crying all the time, right? However, okay, we're going to talk about the age, okay, and that's another thing. When can somebody be culpable for a crime? Okay, take a guess, and this is where I bring in the mathematics, okay? So how many days do we have in a year, guys? 365? Okay, all right. What's 365 times 10? What is it? 3,650. Man, you guys are way smarter than me. So here's where I go with that. Okay, so anybody above the age of 3,650 days, you could probably be charged for a crime. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this happens in school a lot. I don't know if any of you school teachers, but it's happened all the time. Go back to guys that threatened or said athletes to another guy, and that guy hit that.
Right.
Like in football fields, same concept.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, and you're right on. So the reason why we're teaching you is now you know. Okay? So I always tell my kids, if they hit you, hit them back, but then go tell them yourself, right? No, I don't tell them that. What I tell them is this: is try not to get hit. Try not to get hit. Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. So, this happens to be husband and wife.
Okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
And then husband abused his wife for a number of years.
Okay.
And then wife wanted to take it even more.
Okay.
And
Okay.
did his bodily injury.
Okay.
Or did he
So hold that question. Okay, jurors, police officers. That's what you guys all are now. If somebody within the rules doesn't break the rules, are they guilty of a crime? Yes or no? If they don't break a rule, are they guilty of a crime? Yes or no? No. Is anybody and everybody guilty of a crime if they break that rule? Yes or no? So I'm not going to answer your question. You know the answer. Okay? The answer is going to be revealed as we continue to develop this. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, there was a situation that I ran into years ago, and an individual happened to pour a cup of water aggressively onto a spouse. Okay? Did I have to make an arrest? Yes, because they were married. And we'll talk about domestic violence in a little bit. The idea behind it is you guys start to understand something as small as a glass of water could, in a sense, okay, address and turn into a crime. If somebody spit at you, okay, so Andrew I like his shoes. I love Andrew's shoes. But let's say I'm having a bad day and my shoes got stepped on, so I decided to spit on Andrew's shoes, okay? And we're going to put this in a context, okay? We happen to be domestic partners, or we would say that we were in a relationship, okay? Here's the thing, is because of the fact that we are in this relationship and I spit on his shoes as a form of control, I could get arrested, and I probably will immediately. Now we're just buddies, okay? We're playing football, we just go to the park, we do this, that, and the other. We bet on football games together, okay? And I'm mad because he didn't pay up last week and I spit on his shoes. Am I going to jail for the same action? Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? We're going to break it down a little bit more in depth so you guys can get a little bit more of that concept. So let's go to the next one. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of speed through some stuff, that way our team can make sure we can answer some of the questions. We already have the state statutes we gave you guys. You guys wrote that stuff down. If you guys have questions, we can talk after the presentation. All right? So this next one is going to be harassment. We're going to talk about physical harassment, okay, and verbal harassment. Now, I'm going to read the state statute. What I would like you guys to do is to make sure that you have that written down. Okay, you understand this concept, because this is a common theme. I go on a call for service and the guy says, he harassed me, or he verbally assaulted me. What does that even mean? Okay? Well, we're going to break down the state statute. So, for verbal harassment, a person commits harassment if with the intent to harass, annoy, or alarm another person, he or she repeatedly insults, taunts, challenges, or makes communications in offensively coerced language to another in a manner likely to provoke a violent or disorderly response. Now, what was the word that you used? What was the word that you baited? Baited like a fish? Okay. So we're going to change baited very specifically in a manner likely to provoke. Does that make sense, guys? So this is how we want you guys to start articulating things. So when I first started in law enforcement, I had no idea what legalese was. Okay. I know English, a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of Russian, like 2 or 3 words in Chinese, okay, Mandarin, and a few other words. But here's the thing, is I didn't know anything about violent or disorderly response. I would always just say, that fool would just beat him up. And that's not good enough when it comes to a police officer, right? We have to get these very articulate things. When we write the reports and Andrew goes over them, okay, we have to make sure when we present it to a judge that it makes sense.
Here's what I'll say with this. With your example, Mateo is absolutely correct. We all have the freedom of speech, right? But what's not protected speech are threats, are certain other types of speech. So, in this scenario, in Colorado, if you are talking to law enforcement and you mention, well, this guy was baiting me, well, what did he say? If you use the terms, he said it more than once. He was repeating the taunts. He was repeating the insults. That takes it out of protected speech, and that makes it a crime.
So I should say, hey, repeat that again?
If you invite it, it's
Are you baiting him now? Are you baiting him now?
But then the other thing that I want to mention is physical harassment, right? It doesn't always have to be a punch. It doesn't always have to be something that causes pain. If somebody comes up to you and jabs their finger at you, if somebody comes up to you and just pokes at you, right? And they're doing that to harass you or alarm you, that is also a crime. So a lot of schoolyard stuff, that type of thing, technically can be a crime.
Does this make sense right here, guys? Strikes, shoves, kicks, she must love me, right? That's the way they all deal with it, right? She strikes me, she shoves me, she kicks, or otherwise touches a person or subjects him to physical contact. Okay, it's not a him or her thing. What it is, are we subjecting another human to physical contact that we don't want? Okay, does that make sense?
So that's the act.
There you go.
Right?
Yep, that is the act.
But remember what's going on in their head. If it's because I love them, because I'm flirting with them,
Right.
then they don't have the right state of mind for this to be a crime.
So when my little girl comes home with all kinds of candies from the guys, all the little 6 and 7 year olds, and she's like, "Yep, I got all these candies," and I'm like, "Well, son, how did you get them?" She goes, "I just beat them up for her." Okay, what is she doing? Okay, well, she's not really beating them up. We tease about that all the time. It's the act, but also what is their thought process? Why are they doing it? So that touches on the physical harassment. Yep.
Just for purposes of time, we're going to skip ahead. These should give you an idea of how to find the common crimes that are being committed against you, right? Or against the community. And so we're going to skip past these just for the interest of time. And get to the more important ones. Okay, so the bias motivated crime. You can see the statute here, and it's quite a long statute, so it's broken up into different categories, or excuse me, different slides. But it's similar to what Zane was saying, right? If it's related to race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, all these, and they commit any of these offenses, then it's a bias-motivated crime. And so keep in mind, when reading through this, you need to provide the police with evidence. What did they say that shows that it was related to race or national origin or sexual preference, right? How do we know it was because it was against an Asian American, as opposed to, well, they were just mad at the world and they didn't care what you looked like.
Okay, so the thing you'll see right here, knowingly causes damage to property, okay, by words or conduct knowingly places another person in fear of imminent lawless action directed at that person or that person's property, and such words or conduct are likely to produce bodily injury, damage to the property. Going back to A, knowingly causes bodily injury too. The big thing is right here, 18-9-121. 18-9-121. That's for you guys to be able to reference, that's for you guys to be able to understand. We all read, we all write, we're all able to comprehend this stuff. Piecing this together, if I show up on scene and they say, well, he picked on me because I'm Asian, and I'm like, okay, tell me why. I'm not going to try and lead you, okay? What I will try and do is I'll try and get as much information as I can, so it's going to be up to the person that's providing this information to give it. Now, a good officer is going to see maybe there's a language barrier. How many of you guys speak different languages here outside of English? Okay, pretty much everybody, right? Okay, that is a beautiful thing. Okay, so utilize that skill, because that skill can grow the community for awareness, as well as it makes us more of an enriched society. A lot of times people look at your duality as far as having to speak English and other languages as something bad. This is where you guys come into play and you can really help.
Now, this is less likely a hate crime against our community, right? But this is also something that you should just be aware of in terms of how the state of Colorado operates. So domestic violence is defined as an act or a criminal act, an act or threatened act of violence upon a person with whom you're involved in an intimate relationship. So if it's you're dating, if you are married, if you have kids together, it doesn't matter if you are no longer in that intimate relationship, as long as you were in a relationship, and if you guys broke up, it still applies. Now, this is not a crime in and of itself. You can't just commit an act of domestic violence. It has to be associated with a crime. So everything else that we showed you before, so assault, physical harassment, all that, that is the crime, and this is the sentence enhancer that gets added to it if the person that the crime was committed against, if the victim of the crime is your intimate partner or has been your intimate partner, and it was done for these purposes. So for instance, if, as Mateo was saying, if we are involved in an intimate relationship, we're boyfriend, and I theoretically just punch him, but it doesn't fit under, let's see, method of coercion, control, punishment, intimidation, or revenge, then it's technically not domestic violence, but it's hard to make an argument that me punching my intimate partner is not one of these. Okay?
That makes sense? Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So coercion, what is that? What does that mean? Don't answer the question. This is more for you guys. What does coercion mean? What does coercion mean? Control. Okay. I don't like the fact that Andrew's wearing those favorite shoes of mine. Okay. Punishment. You know what? I'm going to beat you up because today, wife, husband, spouse, intimate relationship, I'm going to control. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Okay. Intimidate. Okay. You mess with me, I'm going to tell the whole family what we did in Vegas. Okay. Everybody's thinking about Vegas right now. Okay. Revenge. Okay. You know what? I saw that text message that you had, and because of that, I'm going to break your cell phone. Now I'm going to give you another scenario, another situation that I've run into. Okay, where there was an individual who, a real sweet young lady, she got mad that her boyfriend caught her in a scenario, a very difficult scenario, and so he broke up with her on the spot. When he broke up with her on the spot, she threw the phone, hit him in the head. Okay. Now, why did she throw the phone? So that was my determination to figure out why. Okay, so my partners and I, we figured it out. She did it as revenge for him breaking up with her. Does that make sense? She acted, did something, okay, to him to get back at him as revenge. That's the crime, okay? Now, I explained this, okay? Think of domestic violence as the bottle, okay? The crime is what you put inside. Does that make sense? Okay? Domestic violence itself isn't a crime, it's the enhancer.
Looks like we're running short on time, so here's just two more points I want to make. With domestic violence, it puts in a different category for law enforcement, okay? So if that's reported to law enforcement, they have to arrest someone. As opposed to if we're just buddies and they think a crime occurred, they can let it go, or they can tell us to just show up in court and deal it out later. But the example that you had given, ma'am, right? That's the purpose of domestic violence, is because if you're in an intimate relationship, there's a different level of psychological control one partner has over the other. So someone has to get arrested. And the last thing I'll also say, not necessarily regarding domestic violence, but regarding these crimes, it goes based off what Zane was saying. Report, okay? These are all fairly minor crimes. There's obviously larger crimes out there, but point being is, if you are concerned about retaliation, Colorado actually also has a crime, makes it a crime to retaliate against a witness or a victim, and that bumps it way high up. So these are smaller offenses, but if the prosecutor ever hears or law enforcement ever hears that you were retaliated against because you're a witness or a victim, you're now talking about a high-level felony. Okay? And the last thing I'd say is, if you don't report it, the community gets a reputation as one that you can commit a crime against and they won't report against you, we become bigger targets.